Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wild Woman podcast. I have another beautiful lady here with me today, Geraldine Ahern, who's based in Killorglin, down southwest of Ireland. For any of you who might be listening and are outside Ireland, um, and just a little introduction to Geraldine. She'll introduce herself, but I came across her work about a year ago through somebody else I know. And then I started looking at her website and I felt I felt it was so unique I couldn't, what I was saying to Geraldine before we started recording, from the depths of my being, I had this calling and knowing that there was grief that needed to be released inside of me. Even though I've been on that journey for quite a while, it felt so much bigger. And no matter where I turned, I couldn't seem to find what I was looking for, other than I know to sit and sort of allow it as well. But I wanted to have a conversation and to open it up, I suppose, this subject more, because I think it is the gateway to our freedom and our liberation in life. I really believe that. So that is why I'm just so grateful, Geraldine, that you have come on today and share, because I know you've been on your own journey, which we might touch on, or whatever you want to share, and the work that you do and what you're learning. And I want to thank you, because it's always it's a vulnerable place to go when we start opening up about ourselves. So I truly see this and do my best to make this a sacred space that honors every single woman who comes on and what is shared, and that the listeners and everybody who's listening will be gifted with whatever is meant for them in this conversation. So thank you for being here, Geraldine.
Oh,
I'm
you're
going
very
to bring.
welcome, Sabine, and thank you for having me.
Can we talk? I mean, a few words you mentioned that come to me as well when I read what you're about was about breath. Breath being, you found your freedom, spirit sort of coming through you, God, however people see that connection. And those words just like, whoa, they just exploded inside of me. Can you start maybe just for those of you who may have never come across you, just to tell a little bit what started this journey for you into the work that you now do today?
Um, so I suppose y- um, I was raised in an alcoholic home. My mom is an alcoholic, recovering now, thank God. And I'm the eldest of five, so I would have taken on the mother role from a very young age. And I don't really share a lot about my childhood story, and that's out of respect for my parents. Um, I've kind of accepted everything that has happened, and I know it wasn't my mom's fault, it wasn't my dad's fault. This was a soul journey. This was, much bigger than any of us. And thankfully, from the work I've done today, I can look at my mom and look at my dad and see the adult and the human and the person in them, rather than see the eyes of the wounded child. So I have, I adore them and I respect them. So I don't really go into my story. I don't think it would be, right
Mm.
for them, and for my siblings as well. So, but everybody knows in Ireland what it would have been like to be raised in alcoholism and all that, goes through it. And I went through life not knowing I was autistic, not knowing I was ADHD until the recent years. Um, and I was deeply traumatized and deeply wounded and very toxic. And from, I suppose, 17, 18 years of age, I would have been in Al Anon, in psychotherapy and counseling, saw a psychiatrist, suffered from depression from a very young age, tried to end it a couple of times. Um, thought I might have been an alcoholic, spent 9 years in AA. Um, all this journey that I kind of thought, oh, that was it, and that's this is my healing journey. And sure, look, I've 10 years of psychotherapy done in my 20s, and I'm flying now. And but like all these my relationships and the way I was kind of showing up to the world and what was going on for me was, when I look back now, I see it differently. um and I was never supposed to have children naturally. I had really bad endometriosis, and I got pregnant with my son, who's now 17. And after 2 years, the relationship ended and I moved. I was living in Killarney and I moved back to Killarney. And from there, all these teachers, like I never, I was always into angels, and like I always had a higher power, and I always had like a God in my life from my understanding, even though a lot of the time I was angry with him. Because Jesus, I'm praying and nothing's happening. I when I'm praying so hard.
I know.
And I met a lady in Killarney who had like an angel shop. And then she started to ask me would I hold meditations in my house. And I said yes. And I was introduced to these like elders, as I would call them, um, mostly women, like in their 60s and in their 70s. I was in my early 30s. And we used to have a meditation group. And I remember at the time, they had this strong sense that we needed to put a band of gold light around Ireland, that it needed to be protected. And, at the time I had no real knowledge or understanding. I mean, I worked in fashion. Um, I had, blonde hair extensions, my back. I was an qualified in interior design. I used to be at Off the Rails, all these fashion shows,
Wow. Mhm.
you know, um, just going to Cheltenham, going to Galway races, and that was my life, So, and it was Jesus. When I look back now, I is on me, or wear any of those clothes. um,
It just brings back so many when you say off the rails. I'm like, oh my
yeah,
God, yeah, that brings me back.
E magazine, RSVP magazine, and
Mm,
all of this, and a really false world, like a really, really false world. No offense to anybody, but it was like extremely just like illusionary, and it was all about the outside and how you looked, and as long as you put on this great face to the world, then like you were really, you were accepted, and that was my life. And I moved,
mm,
to Clordlin, and like it just started to unravel. So it started with this meditation, and then one of the ladies in it introduced me to Reiki. I started, having Reiki sessions and craniosacral therapy from her. And then she said, will you train? So I did my training with her. Then I started running Reiki circles. Then she was retiring. She said, will you take over the teaching? She said, I've asked my guides, they've given me your name. So then I became a Reiki master and started teaching it. Then I get into crystals and into sound therapy. And then, fire ceremonies at the Papsadanu. And then shamanism entered my life. And then the next teacher came. And so it's like I never sought for anything. It all landed. And it's like there was no other path there, only this particular path. And for me, even with Reiki, and like it was amazing, and I love it. It was always my first love, but it doesn't do anything for the shadow in us, So I found that like the more light that was passing through, the more shadow that was appearing, and I wasn't aware of it, and I didn't know, even that I had a shadow, or what a shadow was, or what was distortion, or what my wounded parts were, and only that it was showing up everywhere in my life. And a lot of dysfunctional relationships, and really seeking for the father and seeking for the masculine. um and life continued, and then I met my partner. We were friends for a long time, and then the relationship happened, and no matter how much we kind of like, we really banged off each other, and I don't know how we're together after all this time. Yeah. um and after a
the
while.
shadow being brought to the surface. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, definitely. Definitely. Like, oh my God, there was no
Doesn't it
running
show
from it.
up? Yeah, like a mirror nearly.
There's
Yeah.
no way. Like, there everywhere I turned, it was just mirror, 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 mirror.
Mm.
And then I started doing women's circles, and I trained with Karen Ward from the Moonmana. I'd already began to gather groups, and never had any issue. Like, the women naturally came. And I started doing her work, and I did that for maybe 6 or 7 years. And and I found when I was holding women's circles, that's when the most of the shadows started to appear. Like, I mean, it was quite confrontational. Um, Things would come up, you know, within relationship with different women. Again, didn't know I was autistic, so I thought everyone was my friend.
Mm,
And that's just a journey, you know, if we're all honest
mm,
about that, you know,
mm.
when we do women's work, that was the journey for me. And
So sorry, when you say that there, is that particularly with women, what were they showing you? Is
my
this
mother wound, my mother wound.
okay?
Yeah, and of
Okay.
course their mother wound as well. y-
Yes.
you know, like everyone's mother wound gets activated, sibling rivalry. When I started to do rebirthing, I understood it deeper. Parental disapproval trauma. She's getting more attention than I am. She's like more than I am. You know, all of this that I didn't really understand at the time, because you know we can only do what we can do to the level of awareness we have in any given moment anyway.
Mm,
So
mm,
you know, I've had to have the deepest of compassion for myself for, you know, ways that I've showed up in the past that I've not always been proud of, but at those times, that's all I knew, and you
mm.
know, that's been part of the journey. And then this guy was coming to Ireland. Tomas then trained in shamanism. I did like Banfasa training and you know shamanism with some different schools, and then
What's
um,
Banfa? Sorry to interrupt you, just while I
oh,
think of what's for
yeah,
anyone who
Banfasa.
may not have heard of it. It's an Irish, just anyone not Irish.
Yeah, so it's just
Banfasa.
an Irish term for like women of knowledge.
Ah, lovely.
You know,
Oh
so
yeah, I should know that. Lots of lovely.
yeah, and it's just an Irish term for that. And you know, really, you can't. You know, it was like the ego loves it when you're doing it because I'm training as you know, I'm going to
Mm,
band
mm,
fat. And I realize now, you know, I'm nearly 47 and I'm perimenopause that it's really not about knowledge, it's about wisdom. And you don't get the wisdom until you have the life experience.
yeah.
That's just, you know, where my experience and my learning of it. And then, you know, you can only hold as well to the capacity of 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 the depth that you've gone, you know, within yourself. And I always thought a space holder was, oh, I need to learn all this stuff. But I've learned in the recent years that a space holder is to empty because you hold space within space.
Mm,
So if I'm full of all the ideologies and, you know, I was really limiting
mm.
myself to, "Oh, no, it says in the book this, and it's, no, my teacher said this, and oh, the course said this. And so this is the way it has to be, especially if you're autistic and you take everything literally and it's so strict with you. And breathwork then began to soften all those edges. So there was this guy coming to Ireland, and what he would do is he would reach out to different women and ask, say, look, I'm coming, I'm doing this rebirth thing, looking for groups to come and be involved with. So I was pregnant with Luna at the time, and he arrived and he started doing these, you know, these groups, and I started to gather them. But, um, you know, Tomas was, you know, in one of the groups one time, and he said to me, you know, Geraldine, I'm not sure that a lot of the women are completely open and comfortable to having a man guide them
Oh, okay.
at this depth. He said, because he knew all the women that came to me, and he just said, I'm just noticing body language. He said, would you ever consider training yourself? And I was like, you know, where am I going to train? Like, I'm Kerry. Like, where am I? The man is after flying in from wherever. Like, where am I going to train? I've said, not at all. And I said, and I'm pregnant, like, you know. You know, it was just all these amazing, wonderful people kept showing up in my life. And I was like, Jesus, how blessed am I, and how, you know, lucky I am. That this thing is naturally just, you know, it was naturally flowing. It was like it was showing up as I was showing up, and there was no way of avoiding it, you know. So um, then Luna was born, and she was born prematurely, 6 weeks early. um you know, she'd stopped growing in the womb and that she had to be delivered straight away. I was going for a home birth with the pool and the whole lot, and like this
This is your
whole,
second child, then, is it?
my second child,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
just a whole lot was like my power was, or I was learning I had no sense of control, and this is the way she had to be born. So goodbye to my home birth, and goodbye to my hypnobirthing, and goodbye to everything. And suddenly I'm in hospital with a very small baby, scared shitless, thinking she was going to die. Um, Holes in her heart, you know, being
Yeah.
sent to Crumlin. You know, all just, it was all sorts of like drama around it. And when we got to Crumlin with her, I remember they saying to me at the time, at home, you're going to drive yourself mad if you don't like rest and, you know, like the feeding, and you're putting yourself under so much pressure. And I can remember saying that something in me is telling me that she needs to keep feeding like this, and that I just need to keep her close to me. Um, and everything is going to be okay. So I suppose they kind of, because I've had a history of depression and postnatal depression with Daniel, they kind of thought it was like a depressed state, or that there was something else going on. And just around the time that she was born, these other two were from America, were traveling Ireland, and they were working on the ley lines, and they contacted me, and I was like, listen, I can do nothing, I'm pregnant. But, and they were saying like, no, we need to come and see the baby. And I was like, you don't even know me, like, and she's not born. And they said, we'll be there on the 18th.
And did you know these people?
Nah. Now, to be a different story, the woman I am today.
There's no doubt of what path you were meant to be on from it.
No clue whatsoever. So
You
anyway,
catapulted into it.
yeah, she wasn't to be due until Halloween, the 31st of October.
Mm.
And then around the time that she was actually born, like 2 days, she was born. And then these people contact me, and they said, actually, we're passing through Kerry. And I said, you won't be able to see her. She won't be home. And they said, we'd love to do like a blessing on her, and, you know, whatever. And I was like, not a hope, like, you know, she's not going to be home. The day before they arrived, the hospital said, listen, you can take her home. I said, I can't. She's not even 3 weeks. She's 3 weeks, you know, like premature. She's not even
Mm.
5 pounds yet. I can't. Please don't give her to me. Please don't trust
Oh
me
my
with her.
God.
And they sent me home, and these people arrived, and they did this work on her, like, you know, like, and they were very beautiful people, and they did like they were into toning and whales and dolphins, and they were after coming from Iona, and, you know, they were on about the Mary Magdalene line and all of that, which I became
Mm.
interested in, and they did some work on her. But I don't know what happened, Celine, anyway, because I don't
Mm.
know anything anymore. But I went to Crumlin, and she had a PFO and a VSD. So a PFO will close by itself. A VSD can't. That hole in the heart can't, because they were explaining that the flesh doesn't grow there, that she needed surgery. So I went to Crumlin, and I handed her over to the consultant, and he scanned her again, and he handed her back, and he said, I don't know what's after happening, but the holes are closed. You can go home. She's fine. She doesn't need the surgery.
Oh my God.
And so I came, you know, brought her home, and I never saw those people again. They contacted me when Ellie was born, but I never saw them again. They just disappeared. The odd time they check in, but, you know, they left out of my life. And a
People
couple,
come in like that, don't they?
yeah,
I've
all
had
the
that.
time, all
They're
the
just
time.
meant to, and then they disappear, and you're like,
Here,
where are they?
yeah,
Or did they
like,
really appear?
yeah, I dreamed it.
That's
um,
incredible.
I know it was just really, really profound. And she, like, and she's an incredible, you know, she's autism, but she's an incredible young girl. And then after about, like, I don't know the times or whatever, but then I up on my Facebook page, Rebirthing breathwork training in Belfast. And I was like, this is mad. So, and it was a woman coming from Brazil, a psychotherapist with 20 something years, and she taught psychotherapy in a university over, and she was also a rebirther. And her daughter lived in Belfast. So I signed up. I remember, I'm very nervous driver. I wouldn't drive. I used to 9 hours on a train to Belfast, train all day, have my breathwork sessions in the evening. I was sleeping on a girl's couch, and I was go up for 3 days, come down for 4 days, go up for 3 days. And that was like for the whole summer. And at the very end of it, I was absolutely exhausted and in really bad form. And I would have had a lot of integration to do. And then I found out I was pregnant with Ellie, my third child. And I was actually pregnant the whole way through, because I was now 11 weeks. And I then had to continue a lot of my own one-on-one work with my teacher. Before Luna, I had a miscarriage, and a really, really bad one. I kind of had a postpartum hemorrhage, and again, nearly died. And came around from that. And then there was Luna, and then there was Ellie. And it was just like, just all this stuff. And my world started to fall apart. Who I was and who I thought I was started to really fall apart. And it was like, it was like
Do you think
walking.
the start of doing that breath work was the sort of catalyst for
Yeah,
that to start?
yeah, that was completely the catalyst. And
Yes.
um, I'm very like I've learned that I carry a heavy sense of responsibility because I was over responsible as a child, and I like to make sure things are right. And because I didn't know I was autistic, and you were supposed to do 3 case studies, and I did 33, of course. And on my 33rd case study, I got a burning pain in my side and I had to be taken to hospital. I was very unwell. I was dying. The doctor, my local doctor, looked at Tomas going in and he said, just take her, just go with her. And they couldn't find any, what was wrong. They thought it was something to do with the baby. It wasn't. My veins collapsed. My temperature was over 40. I was rigering. And I had, the pain was so bad I wanted to die, like the physical pain. I was, because I can't. I was really worried about Ellie, the baby I was carrying. She was only 27 weeks. So I eventually, they gave me something for the pain and it settled. And I can remember sending Tomas home. The pantomime was on in Clorglen that night. And I said, just take me to the panto. And he was like, are you mental? Like, I was like, would have been my son and his son. They were like, young at the time. I said, just take them to the pantomime. I'll be fine. Go wheeling me here. And I went to the toilet and I came in and I couldn't really feel the ground, but I felt light as a feather. I felt so peaceful. I felt so full of a bliss and a love that I can't even describe. And I just felt nothingness and emptiness and just all this really just like, again, something I can't describe. And I was walking towards the bed and the nurse asked me, are you okay? And I went, I'm fine. I'm so happy. And she's kind of going, okay. So she checked my blood pressure and there was a doctor with her. And that the nurses watch. They were checking my pulse and my blood pressure, and he caught the watch and he threw it across her. He said, I can't read that thing. So I was doolally looking at the two, backing over, and next thing there was an oxygen mask on and there was beepers going off, and I said, where are you taking me? She said, oh, we're just taking you down to the maternity ward so we can keep a closer eye on you. And then the anaesthetist was in and he was walking around the bed observing me, and the nurse was telling him everything that I'd been given. And I started to get lighter and lighter and lighter and calmer. And then my phone rang and I picked up the phone and I took a selfie and I sent it to my sister and I was like, can't talk. I have a mask on, and I was able to do all that. So I was still coherent and I was still here,
Yeah.
but no understanding of what was happening. And I
But what was happening?
I was dying.
You were dying, basically, yeah. And you had your temperature, when you say he just threw things, had the temperature just gone
If the
off?
temperature was gone, blood pressure was really, really low, heart rate was really, really low. I was in bliss, complete bliss. And then and I realized as well, there was no mind involved at this point. It was like, it was just something else was happening. And I was, below in maternity, and it was like I visualized. I still laugh at this because I didn't even have a car in the car park. I visualized my soul getting out of my body, going out to the car park, getting in the car, driving home, and I was around a kitchen after Tomas trying to get his attention. And the next thing I remember is a line of doctors in their coats, because it was Friday night, standing at the bottom of the bed, looking at me. And then I got scared. And they said, are you okay? And I said, I'm scared. And they said, like, it's okay. And I remember closing my eyes for a few moments. And the next thing, just they were on with more stuff and whatever, and I started to come back. And the following day they had kept monitoring me, and I was on a lot of like big antibiotics, which obviously had started to work. And the rest of it is a blur, but on the Monday morning, the nurse minding me on the Friday night came running in and hugged me crying, and she said, you're not supposed to be here. You were gone and I leaving here on the Friday night. And because the nurses in neonate knew me from when I was in with Luna, they told me afterwards, because she was born a little bit later and they had filled me in afterwards, that
So she was born that weekend?
was born a couple of weeks later.
Oh, a couple of weeks later, yeah.
So, and they had filled me in on what was happening. So then my sisters showed me the photograph of me, and I was black and blue, like my face was swollen because I was pumped so much, fluids and everything for whatever was needed. And the they left me home after about a week, and my liver enzymes kept rising and rising and rising and rising. So I used to have to go in every 2 days to get bloods to check them, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't find a reason. They were just all these questions. A couple of days before that, I was at the Papsidanu with a friend of mine. I drank water from the holy well.
What's the Papsudanu?
I'm from Kerry, and I think everyone
And
the
we
Papsidanu is
don't know about that up in Galway, where I'm from.
it's a sacred site outside Killarney. You can see the
Ah.
mountains, so they're supposed to be the breasts of Anu, of the
Oh.
goddess Anu. Which would have been the main goddess, and the mother goddess of the two of the Danann in Ireland. And
Mm.
I would have always had a strong connection and an affiliation there. It's where I did my first fire ceremonies, and it was actually a man asked me to come out and start doing work there when I was completely oblivious in my earlier years, and that's how I had that connection there. But I went a few days beforehand with a friend of mine, Vicky Cullen, and we walked, we were walking around or whatever, and we drank water, and this farmer came down and he said, don't drink the water because it had been raining. And the way you hear about all the sacred sites that the water's pristine and all of this. So they were trying to figure out, was it the water I drank that gave me the sepsis because I'd gram-negative E. coli in my system? Was it the cat? Was it? And they never found the source, which was the most frightening thing for me. It came and it disappeared. And they were kind of said, it's miraculous. Your blood's your liver enzymes are really elevated, but the gram-negative E. coli is after disappearing. So you're like this enigma. We've no idea what's after happening, where it's coming from, how your baby was fine the whole way through. And so I think that I just finished work the day before Paddy's Day. And because I was continuing, doing bits of my work and stuff. And Tomas says, will you have cacao? And I said, I will. And he went and he made it, and he put cayenne pepper in it. Fucking pain in the side started again. So very sick, into the hospital, roaring inside the hospital all night with this pain in my side. And I was just like, at this stage now, I begged God, would you just take me? I can't do this anymore. Just please, please take me. I'm done. Like, my children could keep me here. Nothing could keep me here. I just cannot do it. And it was a very scary, scary time. So Ellie is born, and so just the morning she was being born, in comes the nurse that was minding me when I had sepsis. The first time, she said, I'll take over here. And I just landed into her arms, and they were giving me the epidural, and she said, Geraldine, you have to stop crying. And I said, I can't. And she said, you have to stay still. I said, I don't care if I die now. And she said, just, it's going to be okay. So Ellie was delivered, and I was very sick after her. And I can remember Tomas coming with her and me just rejecting her, take her away. I just couldn't. I was just so unwell. And she was fine. She was supposed to be absolutely perfect, grand. They said, we just need to take her up to neonate, and at this stage now people have been sending healing or what, and before I knew it, she was now in an incubator. She couldn't suck, she couldn't feed. And it was very scary time. So Tomas put a layer of protection, in his eyes around us, and kind of saying that, because I've realized when people send you healing, they're sending you healing from their point of perspective and through their lens. And if there's a lot of their own shadow in that, then the light is coming through that to you, and then okay, I know this sounds bonkers, but I'm talking from my experience.
Yeah.
That because there's not a lot of shadow work done by energy workers, you don't know what you're getting.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know,
Yeah. I want to. Yeah. I'll let you finish there because I want to talk a little bit about that because I think it's very important. Yeah. Yeah.
it's just because of the level of, you don't know where people are on their journey, or what perception is, or their willingness to need to heal, when that's not maybe what's necessary in that moment, because a person might actually have to go through something and experience it, that rather than having to heal, fix, or change it in that moment, if you understand what I mean.
Yes. So was it sort of bringing your? I do, because I I don't know. I only like you said, I think that's the thing I've been learning more and more understanding is more as I've been releasing nearly or clearing shadow or integrating whatever, I'm my awareness is opening up more. And it's sort of in what's the word? It's in yeah, it's sort of in relation to what is moving out of me or what I'm facing or feeling and releasing that is bringing
Yeah,
in more
yeah,
awareness. Isn't that sort of what's
yeah, yeah. When
how
you,
would you, yeah. Because I
yeah,
think there's a lot of I wouldn't say misconception. People talk about shadow and it's bad, it's not bad. Is it, you would see it as just the aspects of ourselves that we have sort of pushed aside basically and
we're
couldn't
not aware
face.
of.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
not aware of.
aware
And
of.
maybe from childhood, something happened and can't go there. So
Yeah,
we don't even know what it is other than, there's something there I can't go near or I can't feel.
yeah. You describe the shadow as in, as Carl Jung says, those parts
Hmm.
of the unconscious that aren't made conscious yet. And when we bring the light of awareness to them, and welcome them into, our life and into our consciousness, and learn to work with them, then there's gold there.
Yes.
They become a gift then. Like, and
Yeah.
it's a painful process when you're being cracked open, and when you're facing these parts of yourself, but it's also very liberating.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you say that is, sorry, just to, would you say that's sort of divinely orchestrated, I would think, as opposed to like for most people, there's timing when it shows up. Like I know for me, there's various times I was cracked open through different
yeah,
things that happened. And then probably the last time, there could be another, was probably numerous times was cancer. And exactly what you described, I literally remember, I've said it a lot, and it's so hard to put words on. I went into such a state of bliss and peace, and I stayed in my house on my own. It was like heaven. But it was just before that, because I'd been holding on all the time in my life and trying to keep the appearance of everything, and I just felt this. I just can't, like, just letting go in whatever way. I always say it was like taking my hands off the steering wheel of the car. I literally felt like that. It was like whatever's gonna happen. There was no holding on. And is that sort of where you would say that's what sort of starts that process, like
yeah, surrendering
surrendering?
to
Yeah,
that moment,
yeah.
and you know,
But something has to happen, doesn't it? Because we're
yeah,
conditioned to spend our life not. This is what I'm really, really I'm exploring more myself. And I think there's just for everyone, this is where, as you say, our freedom is that we've been conditioned and programmed to keep everything like you
mhm,
said, I think in something you wrote about talk therapy, and fine, it has its place, but you can't completely you can't heal from the head up. So, but we're kept in that place all the time and away from the heart and the pain. So, is that been a big part of what you do through the breath work and how, yeah,
yeah. I suppose rebirthing would have brought me to that space, because there's a difference between breath work and rebirthing.
okay,
And
yes,
it's such a loose word now. It's thrown
I
around so
know.
much,
Mm.
So, like, for me, I can remember the
No,
you know.
sorry, I jumped you off where you were,
Oh,
so I
no,
hope
no,
it sort
you're
of
fine.
connects with where you
No,
were. You were
it's
saying
perfect.
after being
No, it's
born.
it's
Yeah,
perfect, because it was
yeah,
all part of my shadow as well, and
yeah.
it was a journey of illness that,
Mm,
that was my journey around it. And like, I came home with Ellie, and got back into life, and she never slept, and up all night with her, whatever. And I can remember paying a lot of money. And the reason I suppose I'm sharing
mm,
the journey with the details is when I get to the end of the story, to kind of, give a different perspective as to why I am the person I've become now, as opposed to what I was into in the past. Um, and how the journey has brought me into the woman I have embodied and I have become today. Um, I I went to a sweat lodge and a breathwork experience, and I had this big reading that I paid a lot of money for, hundreds for, of this really famous guy that I kind of, followed a lot. And the reading was, like, all the bullshit, as I would call it now, oh, you're this and you're that, and oh, the ego loves it, like you're so special, and you're a Magdalene and you're this and you're that, and like, and like, you're full of toxicity, but you're a Magdalene. Like, and there's no unconditionality, because you're in judgment, you're in different things. So, but I can see it was the path of the Magdalens, possibly. You
Mm,
put a term on it.
mm.
Everything is termed now, and and so he said, you'll never again get sepsis. It's gone. It's gone. And even with issues around abuse, he would have said in my younger years, oh, they were after your innocence and they were after this. And, when you're in a vulnerable space and you're looking for answers and you're scared shitless that you might die, you will pay any amount of money and you will do anything. And I did. I paid a substantial amount of money for this reading. And it was gone. The following Sunday, I had sepsis again. And I had the pain in my side, and I was the same with the roaring in the roaring and screaming with this pain. It's so bad. And at that time, they said, not only are you septic and you have sepsis, you have endocarditis, an infection in the valve of your heart. There's something wrong with your pancreas and your liver. And I remember lying in Connery Care, and the needles kept popping out of and I was all blood, and I went like, I fucking feel like Jesus. I'm sorry about my language.
No, let it out.
Like
All
Jesus.
language is fine.
I felt like Jesus on the cross. It was like being crucified. And I rang my teacher in Brazil and I said, Monica, I'm dying again. And she said, Geraldine, you need to go deeper. I was like, what the
Oh my God.
deeper? Like what? I'm nearly in a box 6 feet under. How much deeper do I need to go here? And I remember being really upset and angry with her and, not talking to her for like 3 months or something. And they sent me to Cork. I begged, please, please, please don't send me to Cork. It's 2 weeks to Christmas. I still have Santi to do. Like I have a baby at home. I can't, I can't go to Cork. And they were like, you're too young. Cork is
What
the,
age were you now?
I was 41.
Mm.
Cork is the best possible place for you. Or was I 40? It was something around that anyway.
Mm.
The best possible place for you. You got it. We have to send you to Cork. So above in Cork, I remember the infectious disease doctor came in to me and she had no bed manner whatsoever. And she said, you are going to be here for a long time. You need surgery in your heart. Your bloods are all over the place. There's something wrong with your pancreas and your liver, and you are going to need to stay here for a while. And I was rang, to us that evening and crying, going, it's done. I can't do this anymore. I just want to jump out this window if I could open it. And they had moved me into another room, and then I cried and I cried and I cried, and I was so on my own. And this woman was put into the room beside me, and she sits in, she says, are you okay, love? And I went, no. And she said, well, I was supposed to go home, but they're keeping me for tests and I work for the Samaritan.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So she sat and she listened to me and listened to me. And I just surrendered and I said, okay, whatever. If I'm not getting out, I'm not getting out. And, this is fine. And the loneliness, and I was desolate and like saying, this is kind of where I'm going to be like. And like why is this happening after all the work
Mm.
and after everything that I've done, and like I'm not a bad person, like where is this coming from? And the went the following day, they put the camera in and the doctor says, I don't know what's after happening, the shadow has disappeared. And it was his words.
Mm.
So they said,
Mm.
like, this is the scan with the shadow and the valve of your heart that needed surgery, and this is it now, and we don't know what's happened. And then they sent me for an MRI, and they said everything is fine. And then they checked my bloods, and they said, we don't know what's going on because your bloods are miraculous for the person that came in. And I said, fine, grand, that'll do me. When can I go home?
That'll do me. That's a real Kerry response. That'll do me.
Yeah, that's, so they say,
Oh my
so we need
God.
to transfer you back to Tralee. And then you need 6 weeks of antibiotics through drip. We'll put in the PICC line or whatever. So anyway, it's 2 days before Christmas. You're going to have to maybe stay in Tralee. You can come out during the day, Christmas Day, because we don't have the staff, the community welfare nurses, the antibiotics or whatever. So I rang a local TD and I said, is there any chance I could get out for Christmas? And he managed it.
Rang a local TT. Oh
Yeah,
my,
and he managed it, and I got
oh
home.
my God. Just shows.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my God.
I had
Yeah.
this nurse coming in every day to me to give me, and I get a pain and I'd be like, I have a pain. And she said, listen, you're so in tune with your body and you're going to feel the workings of the inside of your body more than anyone else's right now because of what you've just gone through in the last year. I said, fine. And then Luna had to be taken down to the public health nurse. Then both the girls got asthma. They were diagnosed with asthma. They were quite young. And then I went down to the public health nurse on the 6th of January with Luna, and she was walking around, and they said, "Oh, this is looking like autism." And the following day, when the nurse came to give me my thing, I broke, I cried, and I went, "I can't do this anymore." So she went out to Tomas and she said, "This girl is heading for nervous breakdown. You better get her help."
Mm.
And he said, "Trust me, she's going to be fine. She's going to, she's fine." And I was like, I'm not." And I just allowed this dying,
Mm.
this, this, like I was full of shame. How could I be going through this? And I'm supposed to be a healer. And, like, and it was really a stripping of my ego and who I identified as. And, it was very, very hard time for me, for my family, for everybody. And then, a friend of mine took me to an autism conference, and I was listening going, I'm identifying with absolutely everything that they're saying here. Like, I just could fucking walk up there myself and give the same spiel that they're giving, because, and I was thinking, I wonder, am I autistic? And I just forgot about it and
Mm.
went on the journey then with Luna, who taught me so much. And then getting to the grief part, I had said to Tomas, I hold space for so many people. I really need somebody to hold space for me, and I can't find anybody. And then I got seeing a thing on Facebook that in South Kerry, there was a woman coming down to do breathwork and keening. I had no idea what it was, but the breathwork part called me. I didn't know it was a training. So I said, I'll go for myself. So we were after moving house. Tomas's eldest son was supposed to move in with us for a while. He was going through a really hard time. And I went to the keening, and at the point of my release, I entered into a full keen. It was really, really difficult. It was about the loss of a child, but I actually thought it was for Luna. And I can remember saying, I was sorry, I was sorry. And I was blessed. I had um, an amazing woman, a real authentic druid, as I was called her, Judy, the Dingle Druid. She's in Dingle, and Katie Blackwell, who's my teacher, shamanic teacher from up your side of the country, but she doesn't practice anymore. And they held me. And on my way home that evening, I got a call from Tomas to say Ross, his eldest son, had died at the exact time of my key. And we're like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
How much more? How much more? And I can remember at that time, Tomas turned against everything. He was a Reiki master. He was into so much stuff. He'd already lost everything in his life, his business, his marriage. He'd nervous breakdown. He fell into addiction. And we were kind of pulling ourselves out of an old world all the time and healing ourselves and getting well and reading, and this stuff just kept, we were being pounded. It was like, he used to describe it. It was like running out of a burning fire where people were still shooting at you and just trying to crawl along the ground. And it was all happening in such, like, we weren't getting a year with any break in any space. And he kind of dropped, started to drop shamanism, started to drop a lot of his stuff, and he kind of turned to God for a while. And, we got on with our lives, and entered into our grieving process. I went deeper into breath work. He had trained as a rebirther at this stage. Um, and I had done different trainings with different people. I wanted to study the psychology, perinatal psychology aspect at a deeper level, um, in English, because it's broken English with my teacher, even though she's amazing. I
Mm.
needed to understand it more. And then I did training with, lockdown came. So all these amazing schools that I could never travel to because I couldn't leave my children. And I'm not great at traveling. So I couldn't go to Greece for 3 weeks to train with this school. And I couldn't go here to train with that school. It all came online. So while everybody was off with COVID, I was online training and online, emptying. And at the very end of that, then I said to Monica, I really feel rebirthing, because I could see from the women I was working with when I gave up Reiki, was like, I'm just putting a band-aid here.
Mm.
You need breath work now at this stage. So I dropped Reiki completely and just became a rebirther at that time and went
Can
fully
you
in.
talk about that? Just talk about what the rebirthing process.
So,
Yeah.
rebirthing breath work, when you do regular breath work, a lot of mouth breathing is amazing for accessing deeper emotions. But if you see a lot of the videos and a lot of the stuff online and the photographs, it always, it's always about this big release and you're acting it out. And there's a place for that. There's a place for that and it's needed. And then, we drop the story and we leave the story behind and we go to what's feeling in our body. And then, we breathe with that, we move with that, we dance that out, and we do whatever we need to do. So in a way, I've learned that you're teaching the body that when it meets something that's rising, you're to be with it and move with it and give it presence. Now, if you're a mother with young children and a busy life, and you get triggered during the day and an emotion rises,
Where do
and
you do? How do you do it?
how do
Yeah,
you do that? Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I've learned with rebirthing. It would rebirthing. It's nose breathing. Our breathing mechanism is damaged at birth. When the cord is cut and we're panicked into our first breath, our
Yeah.
death urge is activated.
Ah.
So we're kind of like, we don't realize we're being born, and being born is like dying. In unless you have, like, your mom has and dad have their birth trauma cleared completely,
Mhm.
which is not reality, before they even think about conceiving you. And what with rebirthing, we breathe through the nose. So you're breathing up through, the nadis, and you're breathing up here, up into your like higher mind, and it works on all your systems. So as you're breathing, it's a very simple breathing technique when and it's conscious connected breathing. So you connect the breath, there's no pause or there's no gap, and that begins to connect to an energy cycle in your body. The energy cycle, then the breath's own intelligence starts to move and starts to go to the parts of your body where there's a trauma held, where there's, and it takes energy to hold. You remember you spoke earlier on about we're just told to shove everything down. So you have emotions and you shove them down, and then they come again and you shove them down. Now it's taking energy to hold those traumas in your body somewhere to keep it so well hidden. So what happens with the energy cycle is it's kind of like that. It's a deep steam clean, like for the inside of the body and for the psyche. So this energy cycle is cleaning you out and cleaning you out and cleaning you out. And at the point where the emotion comes or the story comes, in a lot of the other breath works, it's like you act it out.
Okay.
But in rebirthing, we don't. We go beyond it. We keep breathing. As difficult as it is, we allow ourselves to meet it, to feel it, but we keep breathing it, and then we integrate it. And then
Ah.
you move past it, and then you're in these higher elevated states of consciousness. And you
So you
begin
don't release. You go.
no,
You bypass, not bypass, but you mean you go
right into it.
right into it. So
Right in.
is there a need to release it then? You're saying you can just integrate it.
Integrate it. And when you integrate it, you move beyond the story,
Yeah,
like you have a bird's eye view, and
yeah,
you're gone to the superconscious.
yes,
So from the superconscious, you're looking from a place of, like, we'll call it non-duality.
yeah.
You're looking at it from a different perspective, and suddenly there's a softening, there's empathy, there's compassion. And wherever you weren't able to let go that story before, you're just able to let it go because you're seeing it from a different perspective. Then when you finish your cycle and you come out of and what you're doing as well is you're learning to soften and merge and collapse and embody and completely surrender to that present moment, to that pain, to that suffering, to that everything that's rising in you. And there's like, and the lines, everything just softens, and you're kind of saying yes to it and bringing more of it and more of it and more of it, and suddenly it no longer has power over you.
Mm.
So you don't let it go, you let it go deeper.
That's so easy. So there's no, okay. So rather say somebody is going through something, we'll just take an example, and I mean, I know there's always layers, so there could be something that's happening currently, and then you have all the other stuff probably buried underneath it that's been triggered. But something difficult happens, someone dies, let's say. So there's the grief of the physical loss. So you're going to grieve that in one way in tears, and you do all of that, you're saying. You're not saying that you don't
No, no,
do
no, you're
that.
not affecting a person at all. But I would notice that that's why it takes 10 sessions. One session isn't going to do it. It might take many more sessions, a series of 10 sessions, and they should be done really once a week or once every 2 weeks, because sometimes something will happen, life will happen, and we won't be able to do that. And we trust in
Yes.
that experience as well, because
Yeah.
we're in something greater than us, which is why the ego has to get out of the
Yeah.
way of this work. And it's a lived embodied experience, because
Yeah.
life that's showing up outside, you shift the energy in here, the outside world
Mm.
start shifting and morphing to match that, because we're not separate anyway.
Mm.
and you begin to see the oneness and the connection and everything. So it's not that you're not allowing the person to do that, but in my experience, especially breathing a lot of women who would be really rooted in spirituality and leaving their bodies, and going into the higher realms, that when you're breathing them, they have a really tough time in the body. And what happens is 10 minutes in, they're roaring. And you're saying
Mm.
that's coming from the mind. That's not coming from a place of authenticity in you. There's a difference
Mm.
between authentic grief and perceived
Yes.
grief.
Okay, very interesting. Okay,
I
describe
say
that. Yeah.
you might have, somebody that starts crying in a session straight away and starts acting it out on the body. And I'm crying for my great grandmother who I've never met, and I'm crying for this person, I'm crying for that person. And then you have somebody who's gone through absolute hell, and they're gone deeper and deeper and deeper. And when they, there's a difference between when their authentic grief starts to come, you just know it.
Mm. A rawness, sort of, is it? There's a
Rawness
very.
and a knowingness, and there's a just like, and it's a real end. It's like the energy in the room, even because you're feeling wherever, like you're feeling, or, oh, you have to be open for them to be able to feel safe enough to go and explore this part of themselves. And that's why I started, there's a time for getting them to push through it, and there's a time then for holding them in your arms and allowing them to keen.
Mm. And is the keen the release then as well, is it? Or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in one keening circle when I'd been searching you out, and then I said, so I've been to one keening circle. I didn't, when you said you went into the pure keen, and it was around the same time as your partner's son. In the old days when the keeners and the women, the band Queena, are they sort of tuning into that collective grief of, or how
Well,
would you describe it, an embody?
Well, I suppose the keening that I do is more of the contemporary. It's more like, and then I changed even my keening from the keen method and changed the spelling because I really wanted to honor the original keen after a conversation I had with Mary McLaughlin. She's an amazing woman, and she's the woman that does like the original keening, which was singing, chanting, song,
Ah.
words. That is what the original keen is. And I have had women in keening retreats and keening circles who would enter into this real like Shanos, otherworldly, kind of really old and ancient kind of
Mm.
song that they wouldn't know what they're saying. They'd say afterwards, what was that? And I'm saying, well, there must be a keener in your family or something that came true. So the reason I don't talk about keening too much or lecture on it or anything like that is because I don't really have like an interest in an affiliation with the singing part of it. It's just for it's I was introduced into it through death and through that grief, and that's where I bring it into. But the original keening and the grief keening, if anybody really wants to learn about that, I would say definitely look up Mary McLaughlin. She
Yeah,
does fabulous
McLaughlin.
stuff in it, and she's currently writing a book, and she has a thesis on it. She's all the studies done on it. And my understanding of it, it was a really ancient Irish practice. It's as old as time.
Mm.
But in Ireland, it was the keening women were brought in, especially to channel the grief of the deceased, to open up a portal within their body for the soul to pass over, for to like channel and move the grief of the family, and like they would be like pulling at their hair, maybe banging their chest, tearing at their clothes, and then the church came in, and and that was the end of that. And when you
Mm.
look at today's world, like the amount of like illness and disease within us and those of us, and it is like we spoke about earlier on before we started the recording, it's like, pull yourself together, like,
Mm.
pull yourself together, and like don't cry, and like don't show.
Mm.
And then it's kind of held because there's no permission and there's no space to do that. So for the work that I do within my retreats and stuff, and where keening work is kind of introduced, it is to allow a woman to access that inside of her. I use a black veil, and the minute that veil goes on the woman, it just, and the music and starts to come. But we have spent a day and a half at least preparing the body for that to come.
Okay. Because it's a big, is it? It's a big.
Yeah, because it's a big thing, and and you have to be kind of like really careful as well, because like we have to be responsible, and that anything we open up, we better be damn sure. especially if you're opening up grief in another woman. You could be damn sure you have the capacity to hold it, that you've gone there yourself, and that you have complete and utter confidence and faith, and that you're not interfering. There's no need for stage. There's no need for pulling anything out of her. There's no need for energy releases. All that's needed is your pure and utter, authentic, unconditionality presence for her. That's it. That's all you bring there.
And that's, oh my God, that's so beautiful. It's so,
There's no need for anything else.
yeah.
Anything else that comes into that space is an ego.
Mm. So you have been, because you have been on that journey yourself, when you go to hold that space now for a woman, and does it, I'm saying not is it easy, but is it just that you're coming into that, yeah, as you said, that place in yourself? So you have to go into that place in yourself where you have integrated. Is it really like you're
Yeah,
beyond all the shadow or the, I'm
well,
not describing it very well.
Celine, if you never tasted sugar,
Mm,
you can't describe sugar to me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Taste.
I know.
You can describe what it looks like. You can
Yeah,
describe where you get
yeah,
it. You can describe the
yeah,
product, but you can never tell me what it's tastes
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Somebody, at a recent keen, at a recent retreat, and when we entered into the keen, when it happened, you know, like one of the women said, I wasn't sure why I was here, but I realized that, and what I do is I look around the room, and those that are not fully in a keen, they're the women that then we get, you hold her and you hold her and we'll hold her. And then like there's this movement that moves through the room. Grief is a wave of consciousness. Tomas always describes it this way.
Mm,
And she moves through the room and starts to move all of us
mm,
into
wow.
place in every one given moment for whatever needs to happen. And we, the identity, the Geraldine,
Mm,
the Celine, the whoever, has to get out of the way for that to happen.
yes,
For it to, and
yes.
it works. It
So it's a
absolutely works.
collective, you're saying, because I know we are just an aspect of,
It's a
we're,
collective. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I can feel that more. And I suppose I'm saying this, and maybe just as well for people listening, because as I'm going into stuff myself, I can, like it's like what you're saying, unless you've tasted it, and in different ways through allowing. I was in a circle once. I had been a drumming circle, and there was heart song at the end of it, which I'd never been part of. But what you described started to happen. This wave of it was over there, and then it rose through me like, oh my God. And then it subsided, and next minute it appeared over there, and someone was So that's sort of what that. So
Yeah.
that's that.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful, but it was so. I'd never experienced anything like it in my life, and it feels like, particularly in Ireland, Ireland is such a sacred land, a sacred energy that it's crying crying out to be sort of embraced again. It's like,
Yeah,
isn't it,
it's
it's
coming back
rising up
for a reason.
in.
Like
Hmm?
it's really coming back for a reason.
Yeah, but
And
this is the new frequencies, isn't it? And it's
yes,
the
yeah,
new earth, the new whatever you want to call it,
and
the unique
more and
thing
more
that.
people are like becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
And like so much so that like maybe not this year, last year, somebody said it to me recently. She said, Jesus, like so I had like two beautiful women. They both lost their moms in the past 12 months. And the grief was pretty intense, pretty intense for everybody there. And, we all just kind of allowed it. And, even the people holding are like crying of the beauty. I mean, I cry with the beauty in it, like, the beauty in it. And I'm so happy that, you know, like it's
It
such
is a
an
beauty.
honor and it's so humbling. And especially a lot of them will be my clients and stuff. Maybe they've done 10 sessions with me and then they come to a retreat, and you kind of know that how much they need this and how much they need to be held and how much they're craving for the mother,
Mm,
that mother energy. And next thing they're held by a woman and they collapse into her, and the boundaries are dissolved and there's no ego or, and I find that there's a difference then with the people that I work with. Facilitators bring one energy, and it can be harder because somebody said to me recently, that must be really hard on you now. And
mm,
I said, I've buried two stepsons. And they went, fair enough.
mm,
I've had to hold a lot of grief in my own life. And I'm not saying I'm any greater than anybody else, but I began to see, and I said to her, holding the person in the grief and in the keen isn't the problem. That's not what takes your energy. The projection and the judgment from the people who don't like, think that it should be done. That's what's hard.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's hard. When somebody gets triggered and the thing is like, I don't believe she should be doing it this way, or I don't, and you kind of get it with the subtleties afterwards. That's much harder to hold than actually holding somebody in grief, because there's no mind involved when you're
Yes.
doing the grief
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. You're just allowing
You're just allowing.
spirit and whatever needs to
Yeah.
move through. Yeah.
But
It's a whole different, isn't it? It's a whole,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
mind involved when there's a judgment.
Mm.
Oh, and there's kind of a difference then between like what's an actual judgment and what's an actual fact.
Yeah.
So for like, this, I think last year for me was probably my best year, health wise, everything wise. There was nothing coming in my body anymore. And my teacher said to me, now you're entering into life mastery. And I can remember going cold when she said it to me, going, Jesus Christ, not nations like. And we had just come to the end of the year, um, and Tomas's second son took his own life on New Year's Day this year. And he has dropped everything now. He supports me in retreats. He's an amazing man. He's become very non-dual. This is what the grief journey has brought to him. He's brilliant, like he's a great teacher around grief, because he's saying, like he said, you cannot, he calls me Mammy, and he says, Mammy, you cannot make an appointment with grief. You're getting it wrong. And I says, please tell me. Just please educate me. And he says, you can't say 7:30 tonight, we're going to meet, we're going to release our grief. It don't work that way. And it was he taught me about this wave of consciousness, and allow it to rise and fall, and allow it to rise and fall, and stop trying to control it, and stop trying to become it, and stop trying to put a name on it. And I, chatting to other women, they're saying like, I'd love to go to Ikina. And I said, yeah, but it needs to go outside this monetary experience. Like, why aren't women just arranging keening circles and holding each other without it needing to be about money? For my experience, like, lots of people said, can you train me? And I did it, and I did offer trainings, and I had to charge, because it wasn't just a keening. I was like, okay, you're here to learn how to hold women, but I'm going to take you through an embodied experience for the weekend before you go and doing it. And a lot of people had a lot of hard time. And at the very end of it, I said, I'm never again teaching this. I'm just never, ever. I dropped keening. I dropped goddess work. I just, because I have the ordinary, everyday mother woman who comes in the door to me, and she does her 10 sessions and her life transforms, and she gets back out. And I said, don't become a therapy junkie and don't become a retreat junkie. If you cannot go out and live the experience and be okay with the people around you, then the healing isn't working. Like, we change the world by changing our inner landscape. If there's no inner transformation, and if the same thing keeps happening and life isn't working, then there's a thing that then we might need to go deeper. But I kind of found that I couldn't. I just kind of went, Jesus, I don't know, is this right at all? Like, Then I found out I was autistic, and it was like, okay, now I'm getting myself at a deeper level. So these women come in, they transform, they go out, they live, and there's no problem. But I just found that a lot of the time when facilitators would come to me, that it was just harder, because they've got their own ideas and their own, they're all
It's not as
coming,
maybe, it's not as organically you're trying to, yeah. Oh,
they're coming from different perspectives, they're coming from different trainings. It's more difficult. They're questioning, and it was like a harder energy to hold type of thing. So I kind of found I took a stand back, came away from keening completely, and then just started to introduce it in back into my retreats again, because I was saying, I don't even know how you could train anybody in this, because like, you kind of have to go through the experiences first. And then people were getting really pissed off at me, because I talk very openly and honestly, and I'm neurodiverse, and I would kind of say, well, I don't really understand how somebody in their 20s could come to me and tell me that they can hold grief when they haven't experienced anything yet. And they were getting really offended. And I was saying, it's not, this is a fact, like,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, like you
Yeah.
haven't gone through a relationship yet. You haven't gone
Yeah.
through birth yet. You haven't gone through pregnancy yet. You know, you're
It
just
is about the experience.
brilliant.
And
And not,
yeah, and don't we feel it of other people? Like I think that's where it all comes back to the feeling. The instinct is our power, and when you meet,
yeah,
you just feel it. It's like I always say, you walk into a room, if you feel uncomfortable. This is, isn't it? This, so when someone's being authentic. If you're being authentic, if you're in that place and have gone to that place yourself, and you meet someone, isn't that it? You can sense if they are or they aren't. Like it's just a very, isn't it?
yeah, and it's not
It's not a mental construct of
no,
they're
and
saying the words. It's the energy. Like I always know people can say
it's
words now.
not judgment either.
Mm,
You'll be coming from a place of kind of discernment, more than a
mm,
judgment. And we all have an inner judge, that that we have to work through as well, especially as women, because we've been so hurt. Like
mm,
to become just aware of our own shadow within that, and to accept it and be open to it. But my point would be, I'm not trying to offend or insult anybody, because I've met the most amazing young women in their 20s with massive amount of wisdom from their lived experience, and they're very embodied in it, and that's
mm,
fine. But it's just that people would ring me up, and you'd know by the so I've started to more interview people to see if they would be suitable for my work, rather than everybody just sign up and come, because
yeah.
the depth at which I work at is very, very deep. It's very confrontational. If you're ready to change and you're ready for transformation, we'll have a great time. But if you're not, and you've a strong mother wound that you haven't looked at yet, and that if you're not ready for this big, massive change and to let go who you think you are, then you're best stay away from me, because we won't have
Mm,
it won't be an easy journey, and it won't be an
yeah.
easy time. And like, I'm, made plenty of mistakes, and I'm continuously learning and continuously growing. I'm back doing family constellation training at the moment, which is blowing my mind even further, because
Mm,
it's bringing a new depth to the work, the work that I do. But for rebirthing, just giving a little bit of context about that. Just for
mm,
example, you're in the womb. Like, it starts with the sperm and the egg.
mm.
Only one had sperm and one egg. I laugh like, I'm the chosen one. Of course you are. There was only one egg chosen. There was only one sperm. They fuse. When the eggs are leaving each other, the sisters, there's a grief for the egg when she's leaving all her sisters. Sometimes
Mm,
when we're in really close environments, and we're in spiritual communities and beautiful retreats and stuff, and we're leaving our sisters, there's this attachment, and it can be coming from back there. Like, it's so deep. This journey is so
mm,
complex, and there's no formula that's going to work for everybody. And then you're like in the womb. Even the state of mind mom and dad were in when you were conceived impacts you. You've spent time in your paternal grandmother's womb. You've spent time, the sperm has spent time in the paternal grandfather's womb. That's coming together, and then you're like the fetus, and you don't know that you're a fetus. There's just oneness, and there's just beingness. You don't have to do anything. Everything is naturally happening. But whatever mom and dad have been experiencing and feeling impacts you as well.
mm,
And then, say, just for example, you're being born and mom is scared and cervix is closed and you're a big baby or whatever. Your personal lie can be, I'm too much. I hurt women. And then you project it, overcompensate, trying to prove you're not it, or suppress it and avoid it. And that's how complex rebirthing breathwork is. And that's really what we're working with. You're going back, 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 back
mm,
to, okay, where's the original story coming from? So I'm not worthy, or I don't feel good enough as an adult. Okay, let's go and see where that, because that's just a story. And when we let go of that story, then we become liberated. And if we can accept that everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, because if it was to happen any other way, it would have happened that way, but there was no other option there. This is the way life showed up for us in that moment. And then we go beyond that, it's wrong or it's right or it's good or it's bad. And then we can come into complete acceptance of who we are and what we're. And it's like, I need to know what my vocation is or what I'm here to do. I have a clue what I'm here to do. I'm just doing what's showing up in this moment. And every time I go, I'm fucking sick of it. I'm not doing it no more. It's like going, well, Geraldine, there's no other path there, love.
I love that. No, the panther love. So you either turn around or keep going.
Oh shit, or get off the pot, like.
Get off the pot. That's the way, isn't it?
You know,
Yeah.
I'm confronted continuously. There's no choice. There's no other way. There's no other.
You've really, haven't you? You've sort of come in with that sort of
Yeah, and I've
very.
tried to give it up. I go school. I listen. I'm going to learn to be a DJ, or I'm going to learn something else. I've just gone back to work in a pub. I can't do this anymore, and it's kind of like, and then it keeps unfolding. But the joy that it brings me, and the love, and the compassion, and when a woman comes into you and she's completely desolate and she's stuck. I'm stuck, birth trauma. I'm listening all the time for birth trauma, and she brings me these stories, and you're like, hang on a second, like, like you're here and you're alive. And I know it's hard. Trust me, I know it's hard. But let's see what the breath will do. And you surrender to the breath. There's no need to do much talking. If I'm talking a lot or interfering in a process, I'm in my ego. Or if
Yeah.
I need her to get to a certain place, I'm in my ego. I let the breath's intelligence knows exactly what it needs to do, and all she needs my presence, my trust, and my openness for her to reach that place within herself. And next thing, she's transformed and reborn in that moment. And it's
And
that.
yeah. But I find that really interesting, and I won't. We'll wrap up soon because it's just been I'm just really moved by the. But I love just what you said there about the integration, that you're going deeper. That to me, just talk, if you wouldn't mind for a moment, just talking a little bit about the mother wound, because is that what you're touching on there? Which to me, what I'm coming to in my journey, let's say, is that the deepest wound that I feel, and for most of us that we carry, particularly as we earlier maybe going through our lives, is really it's the sense of separation, from
Yes,
the oneness.
but that
Yes.
sense of separation is also coming from the placenta, because I do placenta work as well.
Mm,
The
okay.
placenta is with you, and the placenta is giving you all your nutrients, and suddenly that's taken away and discarded. And you're still
Mm,
waiting for these nutrients. You go through your whole life missing something in life, in a relationship, in a
mm,
job, but you're actually
mm.
missing that. And a
But
lot
we
of people,
can like, I know we're
yeah,
never not connected, but is it, to me, it's like more, the sense I get is it's plugging out of where I would have been plugged in, which was the outer world. Oh, all my answers are there, and plugging back
we
in.
have it all within us. We
Yeah.
have
So you
everything.
can go back to that nourishing connection to whatever you call it, God source. I mean, that's the journey that I was jolted in through cancer, because a woman I listened to the other day, and it really just, the way sometimes things come to you, and maybe the more awareness, as you said, another insight or perspective on it. And it was like the cancer was jolting me into my body, because I'd been mostly out of my body through distraction, addiction, a fear, running, 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 running.
Calling you home, calling you home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Exactly it.
It
Yeah.
is. And like with the placenta, I get a crocheted placenta. A woman crochets them for me in the exact weight. They're beaded and there's an umbilical cord. And when we do placenta work, we reconnect the placenta. And it's like women say, I'm sleeping with it. Like I just, I've this connection. So we can go back and we can do anything through visualization and through, like if we have awareness. But breath work without awareness is no good, because you've no awareness. You can't break your patterns.
Yes.
The
Okay.
work is great, and everything is brilliant. The work that we do and somatic movement, it's all brilliant. But without awareness, then it's kind of like you're pissing
But
into a
but isn't that awareness, that'll just, I'm saying show up? Like awareness is sort of, you're saying awareness of the past patterning, or is that what you're
pattern.
saying, in the
Yeah, yeah.
stories and the
And the story.
attachments? But they sort of, all I can speak from my own life is they've sort of surfaced, I suppose, as I've been ready. I suppose that's the way it is. Like,
Yes.
is it, or is that, would you say, or can you?
I suppose what I mean is like that we can do a lot of work that's just giving us the good feeling,
Yeah.
and there can be no awareness.
Yes. You haven't gone into the depths, I suppose, is it?
No, I
No.
suppose it depends on the modality that you do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes when you spot a pattern, you're like, oh my God. And then like that pattern unlocks like dominoes everywhere else. And then there's like a deeper liberation, or else we might have to keep going back for the band-aid. Oh God, I need to breathe. I need that happy feeling again.
Yes.
There's no awareness is what I would mean
Yeah,
by
yeah,
that.
yeah. Thank you. It's like it's the same with, isn't it, with illness, and I won't, but I know you've touched on that. It's just it's so interesting because I mean, for me, everything, yeah, it goes back to a root cause. They're just physical symptoms, really, aren't they, of a deeper wound or whatever. That's
Yes, and I mean, I have no answers for sepsis, and I
yeah,
don't know whatever. And the thing about it is, there's loads. I just keep saying to people, I don't know. Like, I just don't know. We don't know everything.
yeah,
I'm still learning. I'm still growing. Like the mother wound, I'm learning through constellation work is like not accepting your mother, but it's about taking the mother. And if we don't take steps to take our mother, then we can't be successful in life. And that's not about business. That's about successful in relationships, successful in all avenues of our life. And it doesn't mean you have to have a relationship with your mother. It's healing the soul wound between you and your mom. That wounding on a soul level.
mm,
And then it's like I would always find that whenever I have a challenge with a female friend, and it's usually within community, not the friends I have all my life. It's like there's a mother wound activated. And I begin to see I can blame her for how I'm feeling, or I can say, okay, what's coming up in me?
yeah,
This happened because it needed to teach us both something. I don't have to worry about her. That's her stuff. But what's coming up on me is, oh, I feel rejected. I feel not good enough. I feel betrayed. I feel let down. It's a feeling that I'm experiencing. Okay, let's see where it really comes from. And that's for me is mother wound work.
yeah, and often goes deeper. Is it connection to Mother Earth as well? I would have thought there's something there, and not even that there's a greater mother that we
I am
often
se-
put a,
I'm separate.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm
yes,
separate.
yeah.
When we're not.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Geraldine. I've held you so long, and it's been
I'm
such a pleasure and such an insight, and it's just been so wonderful to listen to you. I really, really, really am grateful, and I know I'm sure the listeners are too. Um, is there any final words you want to say, or just a thought on Ireland? I don't know why. I'm looking at the beautiful image behind you. I keep seeing a way. I'll just tell you what I inner vision. I'd say my inner vision is opening up, and I keep, particularly when I talk to women. I keep being seeing in within this web of connection with us, this, and
yeah.
it's like I'm being moved in it. Like it's like what you're describing through your life, this sort of wave of consciousness coming through, and it just feels that it's become more, I can't even describe, but I'm trying to say it's become more, yeah, it's
I
moving
think,
more
we
naturally,
might
let's
be
say.
drawn to certain places. Like I would be drawn to Papsadanu and drawn to different,
Mm,
like Belarcoshin is quite close to me. You're drawn, and there's a sacredness in all the land in Ireland, I feel. And we're a very, it's the heart of the Irish. You hear it all over the world. And I think if we're drawn here, we're drawn maybe to heal something within our own lineage.
mm.
You understand what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I do. I
And
do.
we do
I
it
do.
through the land.
Yes.
So I just have a
Yes.
different perspective on it. When we receive our mother, we can receive the land. And a lot of the time I've learned recently and realized is that when we have an issue with our country, we have an issue with our mother. A lot of it goes back to the deeper I go, that it goes back to the mother wound. But I think the country is the way it's supposed to be. And, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs.
We'll leave it on that, I think. Thank you so much, Geraldine. I'm just going to stop the recording here for the audience. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And until the next time, take care.